have Damian Marshall joining us from Demonware, and if people don't know Demonware, a real success in Irish gaming tech. Well, Damien will tell you more about Demonware, but the company that power a lot of the back-end services in some of the large Activision games and other games. So Damien's going to just talking to us about that, the importance of back-end services and massively multiplayer games. So I'll hand over to you, Damien.
Am I presenting?
You are indeed, yeah. I can see your screen.
I see big Demonware. There's nothing offensive on my screen or something.
How
to present. Okay. Great. And my sound's okay. Also.
Yep.
All right. Cool. Great. So just as Peter was saying, I'm Damian Marshall, and I'm a tech director at Demonware. I've been with Demonware on and off for since Modern Warfare 2, so I don't know how many years ago. It's a long time ago now. So the title of my talk is this succinct title, which is how to cope with a few million people knocking at your door looking to get in, or the shorter one is doing Call of Duty online services. So this particular game is Call of Duty Warzone, which was Call of Duty's entry into the, I guess, overcrowded battle royale space, and it's been quite successful this year. So what I'm going to be talking about is, as we said, Demonware is fully owned by Activision. We're a technical team, and we basically support the launch of services like Call of Duty. So what's the big challenge that we face with a Call of Duty title? Stop my timer here. Well, this is what a regular growth might look like if you had, an online services application. So over down the bottom we have time, and on this axis here we have users. And so over time, what would happen is that as you're successful, basically your users would grow, and then you'd have issues, and you respond to that, and you release new features, and new users would be added. So there's this kind of growth pattern where you can, react to how things are happening, and deliver new services, and new users come online. The big challenge that Demonware has to deal with on a regular basis is what COD-like growth looks like, is that we have a really big bang event that happens when the game launches, which results in a massive influx of users, millions and millions of players at the one time. And actually, with the move to digital releases, this has actually gotten much worse for us. So when it was physical, people would have to go to the shop. They would, buy their disc, have to put it in, install it. But now what we have is that people will pre-download the game. So bang on midnight around the world, you can actually see it happening in our graphs. Midnight, basically everyone is just released, and they basically essentially run at Demonware and start looking to play the game. So this is like a really big challenge for us, where we go from zero to nearly peak numbers that we're going to achieve in terms of users within the space of a couple of hours, or even less than that. So that's like the big challenge, where it's like moving from this model of gradual growth to like big bang effect like this. So some numbers just to say what this would look like. What we would regularly deal with is like 70,000 requests per second. So a request is one of the games consoles has asked our services for something. We have over 470 million gamers registered on our system, and we would regularly deal with over 3 million players and more online at any one time. So there's like 3 million people connected to our services at one time. Our best case scenario, if things are going really well for Demonware, then players don't know we're there. That's what we would look for. We don't want things about servers being down or people unable to play the game. The flip side of that is that if we're doing our job really well, then people don't know that Demonware were involved. They just know that they could play the game and nothing was getting in their way. So that's what we aim for to be completely hidden in the background. So how are Demonware involved in something like a Call of Duty launch? So as I said, we are part of Activision Publishing. We do three things. So in Activision, there's a number of game studios, and we do three things with those game studios. The first one is we provide an online platform of services. So we would provide services that people would integrate and use to build features in their game. So this is like a pretty standard set of things that all modern online games have. things like matchmaking, leaderboards, the ability for your store an online profile, have friends. So these are like bread and butter services that every game that's online will nearly have right now. So it's like finding other players to play against, being able to save your game, being able to communicate and know when your friends are online. The second thing we do is that we partner very, very closely on the development of new features for games. So oftentimes the game studios will be like, yeah, we have matchmaking, but you know what? We want to do this really cool service that does X, Y, and Z, and we will partner with them and then build the server-side code and features that will enable that feature to function. So it'd be like, for example, we've done a lot of work on Guitar Hero, where people were trying to like get into modes where they're playing against each other and things like that. So it's like the game studios will come to us all with completely and interesting challenges. Another one we have for Tony Hawk was this build a park feature where people can build parks and share them against each other and tag them, and you can find them. An interesting one we worked on for Call of Duty was the game record feature. So every game that was happening was streamed up to our services, and we would keep a record of those, and people can download and make videos and funny videos for the internet as well. So that's how the online platforms are standard set of services. Then we partner with studios, build bespoke services for them as well. And then the third pillar that we provide is hosting. So as well as providing and building these services, what we will do is host all of the data and all of the services for the online titles. So what this really means is that we run tens of thousands of servers in our data centers and in the cloud, such as Amazon and Google, to support the title. So we make sure there's enough capacity available such that, as I said, when the horde of gamers eager to play Call of Duty, when 12 o'clock runs around, we make sure that everything's ready for them to play against each other. Here's a really, really simple example of what matchmaking would look like. So here we have one user would contact Demonware and say, like via the game, obviously, they would go like, I want to play. They're playing Warzone, and it might give us a bit of metadata about themselves. So oftentimes this is like skill or preferences, but in this really simple example, this user says, hey, I'm in Dublin and I really want to play Warzone. So then we would store that in a database. I'll talk about technology, but we heavily use MySQL. So we would store that in a database saying Demo111 is in Dublin and he is looking to play against someone. So then a new user will come along and say, hey, I want to play Warzone and I want to play against people in Dublin. So we will look up our set of data and then send a message back to this user and say, hey, you should play against Demo111. Here's all the contact information of them. And then these two users can then play Warzone against each other. And then when they're finished, they might update a leaderboard or go search for other users. So again, that's really, really simple, but it just is a really simple example of like, here's how our matchmaking would work, whereby we store some information about users, their skills, their preferences, what they're looking for, what game modes they're playing for, and then we will find other users with similar preferences to them. Maybe we look at skill, we see, is this a good match for them? Do they need to skill up or not? Or is they looking for someone in close to them and things like that? And then we allow them to play together and hopefully give them the most optimal and fun experience that they can have. So this is all quite simple, but remember I said that COD growth looks something like this. And really, if we start like this, what can quickly end up happening is that we actually have a couple of million people playing online at one time, and the databases could just quickly explode, and we're in a world of pain, and people are getting paged and called. So what can go wrong? Okay, there's a myriad of things. One good thing that can go wrong is the game is way more popular than expected. So what are we going to do about that? I think that's not so pleasant is the game client can break and then start spamming our services with a lot of matchmaking requests that we didn't expect to happen. Random things, database disk fills up, hardware randomly fails, disk speed's not fast enough, bugs and broken configuration changes can happen. I don't know if people have seen, but there was a massive internet outage. Amazon was down because of a CDN called Fastly. had a bug that was released that was revealed by a configuration change that was broken. And that took down vast majority of the internet. The networking gets overloaded. A hurricane can happen. That is no joke. We had to deal with a hurricane in New York, and we had to deal with electricity failures and petrol generators failing. And another big thorn in our side is distributed denial of service attacks. So people just for fun or whatnot just want to try and take down your services, and a lot more. So you can see that a lot can happen when you're dealing with all these users as well. I just want to point out that I point this out, and I don't mean it to be scary and put people off. This is actually where a lot of the really interesting challenges and space to work in. It's like thinking about these things and what can we do to make sure that the game is a success, people can still have fun, we can still have lots of users online in the face of all these challenges. And that's what actually brings a lot of the interest to my work and why I'm kind of interested in this space. And it could be an interesting space for others to work in as well. So what do we do around these? Well, it's not a complete set, but there's 3 really key things that we'll need to do to make a launch a success. The first thing is that we design features to launch to scale safely. This involves a lot of human side of stuff. Secondly, we use scalable technologies. And finally, we prepare to fail so that we don't actually fail. So I'm going to go a little bit into detail for all of these now. So what does it mean by design for scale? So as I mentioned before, we have our standard suite of services like matchmaking, online profiles, friends, etc. But we also work hand in hand with the game studios when they're building their features. And what we're doing then is understanding the feature they're wanting to build, and given our expertise and how database works, like what's network capacity, what's the speed of things on the internet, we try and work with them to take their really, ambitious feature that they want to build and say, here are the practicalities of doing that. How can we work with you such that we can support your feature, but in a safe and scalable way? So the questions we might talk about is like, how often does the game need the feature? Is it displayed at login? Can it be in a separate menu? How fresh does the data need to be? Like, does the data always need to be the most up to date? Or is it okay that the data is 5, 10, or 60 minutes old? Like, if something is 60 minutes old, we can cache that and store it. And it means that they don't have to talk to a database for every request, which means then that we can provide a much more scalable service. But does that affect the feature? We just have to have a pretty robust conversation around that. A really interesting thing where we always ask is, what happens to the game if this feature fails? What will happen? Will it display an error message? Well, one thing we really try and do is try and make the game fail gracefully, right? If this feature doesn't work, if it's an auxiliary feature, does it actually affect the game? Can the feature operate in a degraded state if necessary? Can we turn it off? So for example, with a Call of Duty game, 2 of the most important things that are there are retrieving your online profile, so you know how far along you've come along, and being able to matchmake. If you can do those 2 things, then you can play the game. So then we will work with people that are building features and saying, can we turn these off? And you display a helpful error message to the user saying, hey, this is degraded right now, but you can still play the game. You're not able to maybe edit some bit of your profile, or maybe you can't see your friends online. But that means that if we have this understanding about if we can turn off or on or manage parts of the feature, then we know that if something happens, if there's a database failure or there's some network issue, that means we can go, you know what, disable that service for now until we get things back online, but people can still play the game. So what's really interesting about this is that there's a technical part to it, but there's a very human part to it as well, where we're actually working really closely with the game designers to understand the feature and also see how we can support it. Second part we do is we use very scalable technologies. This is just a snapshot of some key stuff. So our programming languages would be C++ because we integrate libraries into the game. We use Python actually for our game services, and it can be kind of slow, but I think we get a lot of benefits from it in terms of speed and of delivery from the features we build. And a really interesting technology that we make use of is called Erlang. Erlang handles the connections, the millions of connections from a game to our services. So think of this as like a gateway that we have in front of all of our custom services written in Python. And Erlang is really interesting because it comes from the telecoms industry, and it's designed for telecoms handling millions and millions of calls, of connections, and it's designed to do so robustly. And that's a really powerful technology that we have. It means that we can do a lot of interesting things in terms of handling lots and lots of users being connected at any one time. For databases, we have many thousand MySQL instances. We use Cassandra as well. We use Elasticsearch, and we also use Kafka. So for MySQL, what we do is we do a thing called sharding, which means that for the matchmaking service, that the data will be distributed over hundreds or even thousands of MySQL databases. So your data might be on one database instance, your matchmaking data, and your friend's matchmaking data might be on another instance. And what we can do with these then is scale them out. So if we find that we don't have enough MySQL capacity, we can add more, again, without affecting the users or having them see that as well. And then running at an infrastructure level, I think everything now is running on top of Linux. We used to have a few Windows things before, but a lot of our services, a lot of the newer ones, are deployed in Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is, I guess, a platform for running your services on, which kind of hides some of the complexity of the services underneath, and it's a really powerful technology. Again, what you can do with Kubernetes is, as things get under pressure and we need more capacity, it's really easy for us to go, well, the matchmaking service needs more capacity to handle the number of users we have. We can make a simple configuration change and we get that capacity. So these kind of things, particularly with Erlang, things like MySQL and Cassandra and Kubernetes as well, this technology suite gives us a really elastic and scalable set of technologies to build on, and then we can use Python to quickly iterate and prototype services with our customers as well. And then the final thing that we talk about there is that we prepare to fail so that we don't. So an activity that we constantly do is we load test all of the services extensively before the game launches. So we'd be always looking forward, seeing what features are coming out, and what this means is that we synthetically generate user numbers far in excess of expectations. So we'd have our sales numbers, and we'd say, well, let's double that, let's triple that. What happens then? And so what we're doing there is the same set of servers and everything that our users will have connected to. We'll have been connecting synthetic users on the scale of millions to those same services for months before the game actually launches, just to make sure there's no gotchas, there's no weird configuration, everything is kind of working as expected. What we also do is test error cases, so we'd be trying to, well, what will happen to our system if a database fails? What will happen if network gets overloaded? And we'd be thinking about things like creating chicken switches, which is, again, as we're going through the design, saying, what can we turn off on launch night? It's 2 o'clock in the morning, the game isn't working. What can we turn off without affecting the core game experience? So as we said, by doing these three things, by working really closely with the game studios, by using scalable technologies, and by preparing for ourselves for launch for many months in advance, then we're looking to get to this scenario whereby the game launches and people don't even know that we were there behind the scenes. So I have about 3 minutes left, so I'll quickly just go through brief history of Demonware. We were founded in 2003. We had lots of customers up to 2007, like Activision, Ubisoft, Sega, THQ, and many more. And then Activision swooped in and bought us in 2007, and so we're exclusive provider to Activision since then. We have about 120 shipped games, and most of these are still running. Activision have don't really sunset a lot of titles, so we have a lot of old titles running. Things like a lot of Call of Duty. Call of Duty is a big focus for now, but we have been involved in Diablo, Tony Hawk, Spyro, Skylander franchise, for example, as well. There are 4 departments. I'm in the platform department, which is the platform is like the core services that people use to build their game on. So as I said, Erlang, MySQL, Kubernetes, things like that. And they work hand in hand with the infrastructure department to make sure all of our servers can run efficiently. The products department then builds long-lived services that work across games. So as I said, matchmaking, would have its own team because that's a very common service that's used by lots of titles. Storage of data, things like that make sense to be used across lots of titles. And then the titles department are the consultants. They're the ones who are working directly with the game studios, finding out their requirements and helping scope out cool features that they can build with them. So the titles department are very much on the coal face, working to help launch the title. Products are building the kind of long-lived feature, and then platform and infrastructure providing that foundation level for people to work on. So we have 3 offices, one in Dublin, one in Vancouver, and one in Shanghai. There's the picture of the Dublin office. I actually haven't seen that in ages, but it's very fancy, as you can see. There's about 150 people, I think. There's the Vancouver office, which is nestled in some mountains there. It's very cool. And a really cool place that we have is in Shanghai. Again, they're very focused on the presence of Call of Duty in the Chinese market as well. So lots of interesting stuff there. And here's some pictures of us having fun with each other. And there we go. So as I'm coming up the last 40 seconds, we have a lot of full-time roles and internships available at all levels. I guess I just wanted to point out, I guess they can talk about all those weird and gnarly things like hurricanes, but we actually take on a lot of junior and internships, particularly across all the departments as well. And they actually get a chance to work on building features for the games, be involved with load testing, be involved in our infrastructure teams. So there's a lot of interesting work. There's lots of roles, and our internship program, junior roles are people get they get really involved in building the features and everything for the game. So, and I just wanted to make sure that sometimes it still seems scary when you talk about hurricanes and everything, but it's all pretty good fun. Yeah.
And it's a great success story, Demonware, in the Irish gaming, tech.
Yeah.
And one thing, what would be, again, considering our audience, your advice for graduate developers, new developers, maybe applying to a games tech company? Any tips you could give them? Or
I guess I'm trying to think. I think I think that there's a lot. Like, I think we've hired from all different courses, and I think that having used, I think one of the things I struggle with sometimes where people talk about side projects, I'm never a big believer in that. I think if you can do good work on your college projects actually, and spend time in that and use your college projects as a good time to build up a good portfolio, I think it's an efficient way of saying, here's what I did in college and I put effort into this, because people talk about, from my perspective anyway, it's having side projects and having that pressure can be a lot of pressure on people just in terms of accessing. I think it's good to be able to say, here's my college projects and I did a good job on these, and you can use those for your portfolio as well. I think that's one thing that I would say to people, because sometimes I feel like there's a lot of sometimes pressure to be you should be building games 24 hours a day, but having your portfolio can come from doing good work in college, I think, as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And just the and the other thing there which you mentioned is the importance of databases. One thing I learned, any game, every game now is online,
Yes.
and I mean that, and the other thing is databases cost money. So it's an interesting topic we could talk along about. For me, I remember with an indie studio, it's much harder now because every game is online. It mightn't be multiplayer, but it's and there's a cost to it. And
definitely. I remember there's one studio I talked to who were afraid to be successful because they couldn't efficiently run their infrastructure.
They couldn't afford it.
I think it just shows that actually there's a whole sphere of the distributed system space has massive implications for video games, actually, modern video games.
Yeah, and I'm just making honest. Listen, Damien, I just want to thank you so much, and great to hear just about the internships and that that there are, just for the our audience here, that and you gave a link to it there. We will be actually asking each of our speakers after this if they want to put their slides up. We'll check with them first. and the links will be there. But listen, Damien, thanks so much for that.
Yeah.
And take care. Thanks again.
No problem.